My name.
Pretty good though.
Kinyofu Mteremeshi-Mlimwengu. My article is Woman Shame, Society's Gain, a case of Japanese sex trade. It's inspired by a paper I wrote for a class I took a couple of years ago. It's Cultural Psychology and Gender. We were directed to research a topic on a women's issue in a country outside of the United States. And as at the time writing for a Brooklyn Examiner, my focus was on sex trafficking in Brooklyn, yes. And I knew that there was global aspects also. The point there was that there's also very local experiences. So I always wanted to know more about the global. And in my research, I found out about what was going on in Japan in the 1860s from this book that's called Sandokan Brothel No. 8. It's written by Yamasaki Tomoko. I found that her curiosity paralleled mine, in that, but she understood already what a karaoke-san was. I was just learning. Karaoke-san is the name of a woman that goes abroad to China to work as a prostitute. I came to find out the significance of the karaoke-san to the Japanese culture and economy. They helped to, what I wrote was that they helped to expand Japanese colonization while further laying a foundation for institutionalized government-supported sex slavery. The government realized that wherever there was an influx of men, that's in tourism and that's in war, women was a great commodity. Money would flow from the men's hands right into the government's pocket. The availability of women provided soldiers with just the ego boost they needed during stressful times. The government set up brothels, prostitution tax, and allowed women unquestioned international passage in and out of the country in question. Eventually, Japanese women as karaoke-san were replaced by Korean and Chinese women, who were replaced by Russian women. And this is as the governments decided that they wanted to protect the women as time went on. In World War II, comfort women were commonplace. Their role was to service the Japanese military. They were made available to reduce the amount of military rapes in the area. These women were underage and taken against their will and without full knowledge of what they would be doing. This paragraph from my article: each player in the process of sexual exploitation, from the distressed families to the deceptive deal makers, to the cunning opportunistic businessmen, to the military and the government alike, not only performs a critical role in the deconstruction of women's sexuality, but also in the development of a particularly exploited economic society. Yamasaki, she found her karaoke-san. The woman that she met was an elder at this time. She was in her 70s. Her name is Osaki, and she was sent overseas at the age of 10 and stayed for a couple of years and was made to work when she was 13. How this happened? In Japan at this time, it's a matter of famine. There were people that they didn't have ways to maintain their livelihood. A man came to her family. At the time, she was being cared for by her brother, who was just a couple of years older than she was. The arrangement was that the man who lived in the community would take her to China. They told the girl that she would be a maid or a sales girl. The girl generally didn't know what they were going to be doing. They might have heard something, but they were too young to really process it. She didn't want to go alone. She wanted to take some of her friends with her. So she convinced their family to let them go. So the 3 girls joined other girls on a ship to China. The man promised that they would eat well. Eating well is a great thing. So for 3 years they did. They played as children. And then when they turned 13, they were made to work. Before that, they saw women going behind closed doors with men. They didn't know what was going on. But they found out when they were 13. They were making money, yes, but they weren't making enough money to really survive. And they certainly weren't making enough money to buy their freedom. They were in a form of debt bondage. These are some examples of women who are sex trafficked. Sex trafficking occurs when women who are forced or coerced into commercial sex trade against their will. Child sex trafficking includes anyone under age 18 involved in commercial sex, even if she doesn't even leave the country. Right here in Ohio, a couple of months ago, Ariel Castro was found to have kidnapped 3 underage girls over time. Because of their ages, he was charged as a sex trafficker, no different than Terrazzo, who was the name of the man that took Osaki from her home. It is believed that between 100,000 and 300,000 individuals are victims of sex trafficking in the United States. And that's a wide range. It's wide because of the limited awareness and lack of documentation around these issues. Locally, predators can be found in schoolyards, on the streets, in gangs, on the internet, at parties, and at truck stops. They could be your brother, they could be your sister, your neighbor. Everyday people with the skill in psychological control are the ones that are looking for those young, vulnerable boys and girls. The victims, sworn to secrecy and fearing for their lives or their families' lives, keep mum about their dilemma. There's secrecy in Japan, too. Normally, it wouldn't be easy for an individual to get such in-depth information about the karaoke song because this is a taboo conversation, both in Japanese families and in the government. Yamasuki used some of her skills in order to get information, and she wrote about it in this book, Sandakan Brothel number 8, which is really interesting reading. At first glance, Yamasaki was a Japanese traveler, somehow stranded in a small town. In reality, she was on a mission. Being creative, even deceptive, she was able to be friends and live with Osaki for 3 weeks. And during that time, Osaki shared with her this information, the story of her life, and her struggles. Osaki basically took her in as a surrogate daughter and a new friend. At the time, Osaki didn't know she was being interviewed until the last couple of days when the author, researcher, realized she needed to share this information. My article and presentation focus on Japan. However, similar instances can be found around the world. One major fact that stood out for me in my research is that the government, Japanese or otherwise, placed brothels wherever there were soldiers. It was found that having brothels in such locations reduced the amount of rapes in said locations. As a result of that statement, I pondered this question, and I challenge you to ponder as well. Is it possible for men to learn not to deconstruct women and women's sexuality as a means to build their own ego and sense of control? Next one.